Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar where we'll be talking about the Trump-Putin summit and the opportunities that the event will present. My name is Sasha, and I'm a financial analyst from the research department at Fortrade. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them, or please call us and ask to speak to a senior account manager who will be happy to help. Before I go any further, please take a moment to read our risk warning and disclaimer. I'm sure you know that although gains can be made through trading CFDs, losses can be incurred too, and you need to be aware of this. Now, we would like to present our brand new offer that is exclusive to those watching this webinar. A special code will appear on your screen during the webinar, and I will repeat this special code at the end that you can use to take advantage of our special offer. Be aware that this offer will expire in 24 hours and that this new offer applies to all of you, not just second-time depositors. So please stick around. It'll be well worth it. If you make a deposit within the next 24 hours, you can receive a balance bonus. If you deposit 1,000 euros, you will receive a 2% balance bonus. Deposit 2,500 euros and you will receive a 4% balance bonus. Deposit 5,000 euros and receive a 5% balance bonus. Deposit from 5,001 to 15,000 and your overnight interest rate will be covered for 1 month. Deposit 15,000 to 25,000 and your overnight interest rate will be covered for 2 months. Deposit more than 25,000 and your interest rate will be covered for 3 months. You're of course free to use this bonus however you choose, but you might find it useful to know about our market opportunities. Well, if you don't know, a market opportunity is a one-page briefing we produce containing market analysis, and our goal is to provide you with a simple-to-understand opportunity to trade in the markets. We will select an instrument such as gold or a currency pair and tell you our very best estimate on its price direction so that you can trade on it if you want to. Market opportunities are produced by us at the research department on a daily basis according to market conditions. A market opportunity consists of fundamental analysis, geopolitical events, and technical analysis that includes a pivot point and support and resistance levels. It's important to understand it's your decision whether you want to trade on market opportunities or not. Having said that, here is an example of a market opportunity. You can see fundamental analysis on what's going on with the pound-dollar currency pair on the left. Below, you can see some geopolitical events that can influence that currency pair. It's important to look at the pivot point on which the calculations are based. You can see that on the center left of the screen, which is encircled. If the price reaches this level that you can see on the screen, this shows the right moment in our estimation to come in and open a trading position if you decide to trade on this market opportunity. You can see that this one in particular is a weekly market opportunity, although we also have regular daily trading opportunities. You can see the trend direction here, which is marked as up. It's important that you know how to use these stop loss and take profit options. You have support and resistance levels shown here, and at those points you can put a stop loss and take profit. And on the other side of the screen, on the right-hand side of the screen, you have calculations. If you close the position using take profit, you can expect these types of profits in green. If the price is going against you, you can potentially have a loss of this amount. Support 1, 2, and 3, and that's in red. The pivot point then is the starting price for opening a trading position based on which resistance and support levels are calculated. Support and resistance levels here are for daily, weekly, or monthly terms. Finally, profit and loss calculations are based on a one-lot trading volume. So, Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are due to meet for the first time on a bilateral basis on July the 16th. The summit is significant as US and Russian leaders do not meet regularly. President Obama, for example, met Vladimir Putin only twice, including at multinational meetings. This comes at a time when relations between Moscow and the West are at a low point, perhaps not seen since the Cold War. The most recent controversy being the poisoning of a former Russian spy and his daughter in Britain, which sparked dozens of diplomatic expulsions. In response, in March 2018, the US ordered the expulsion of 60 Russian diplomats. Russia responded with the expulsion of 60 US diplomats. Both administrations will be hoping for some reconciliation and, above all, mutual benefit. However, there are those within the US and among US allies who are eyeing the meeting with concern. They feel that President Trump may make unexpected or ill-conceived agreements with President Putin and appease the Russian leader. Following the unsuccessful G7 meeting, in which former international allies were angered with President Trump's stance on trade, the US president is likely to be looking for an opportunity to present himself as an international statesman. So, the meeting will take place in Helsinki, which has a history of providing security and a neutral atmosphere, and has a long history for important meetings of this kind. The meeting has been highly awaited and significant since superpower summits are rare, but provide prestige for leaders involved. The meeting is controversial, though, since Russia is currently being investigated by US authorities for meddling in the 2016 election won by Trump, and relations between Russia and the West are poor. Russia's war in Ukraine and intervention in Iran has also soured relations between the country and the West. So, what will be discussed? Geopolitical concerns will be at the top of the agenda, but economic issues will also be discussed. Most analysts agree that 4 subjects will certainly be discussed: the situation in Syria, and by extension the subject of Iran, and Russian meddling in the US election of 2016, which is currently being investigated by the US Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller. Trade issues are bound to come up, as Russia has also been hurt by US sanctions, including their metals and aluminium industry. The oil market will also be raised. As far as Syria and Iran is concerned, the US withdrawal from the nuclear agreement with Iran and recent US military strikes on Syria will be one of the main topics of conversation. The US will demand that Russia at least dials back support for and reduces its military presence in Syria. Russian meddling in the US election. This is perhaps the most controversial issue connected with the summit. The investigation led by Mueller in the US on Russian connections with the Trump campaign in the election is ongoing. Reports suggest that it's progressing. President Trump has previously dismissed the investigation as politically motivated, but US officials concede that the issue will be discussed. The implication is that if there was any Russian meddling, then President Trump and his inner circle didn't know anything about it. So, to trade issues, this is a concern for Russia. Although the country hasn't been as deeply affected as more traditional US allies such as Germany or Canada, Russia has estimated economic damage from the US for the Russian economy at around $500 million. The US is Russia's 6th largest trading partner, and imports from the US total $12.5 billion, with aircraft, vehicles, and pharmaceuticals among the biggest sectors. It's thought that Russia will target autos, and from the US with their own tariffs. So this is a potential subject of discussion. On the other hand, President Trump has also championed the return of Russia to the G7 group of trading nations, against the wishes of his allies. Russia was excluded from this grouping after the country had been expelled in 2014 due to its annexation of Crimea. As far as the oil market is concerned, the US and Russia appear to be somewhat in agreement on oil prices. Before OPEC met recently, Russia was one of the countries pushing for higher levels of OPEC production, which would bring prices down. On the other hand, Trump has repeatedly accused OPEC of controlling prices and most recently tried to put pressure on Saudi Arabia to increase oil production by some 2 million barrels per day, which would, by the way, break OPEC's existing agreement. President Trump would like nothing more than to drive a wedge between Russia and OPEC, who recently agreed to increase oil production by 1 million barrels per day. Although in reality, analysts believe the amount really means an increase of some 600,000 barrels per day, which has helped to push oil prices up. Crude oil prices then will be discussed, although on July the 4th, the Kremlin made clear that the oil market will not be a main issue on the agenda. Firstly, Donald Trump's hawkish national security advisor John Bolton, who set up the meeting, told reporters in Moscow late last month to not anticipate any specific outcomes from the summit. European allies are particularly concerned that Trump will be eager to please Putin and to undo efforts for a united front against Russia for its destabilizing activities on the continent. It's also possible that some kind of deal on arms control will be signed. This type of deal would look great for both men in front of the cameras and would represent something concrete to come out of the talks if no other solid agreements are put in place. It's possible that a compromise deal on the Middle East would be agreed at the talks, but this wouldn't likely be an open agreement. Still, any statements of unity on the Middle Eastern policy will be of interest to analysts. Okay, so let's talk about the possible market reaction. It's likely that the summit, which is after all the most important part as far as you're concerned, it's likely that the summit will have some impact upon trading. The instruments that might be affected include gold, the US dollar, the Russian ruble, and the price of crude oil. Global stocks may also be affected. Okay, so we can see on this chart how the euro-dollar has fared in recent months. The euro has experienced a few shocks influenced by political instability in Germany and Italy in recent weeks. The euro-dollar has been dragged down by the trade war, particularly due to fears that the German economy will take a hit via its car manufacturing sector and low interest rates. If the US and Russia do announce any geopolitical or economic deals that exclude Europe, this may act as a drag on the euro currency. On the other hand, a successful summit may influence stocks upward, with investors more likely to accept risks. Although the global trade issue, US company earnings, and Fed rate hikes will have more influence on market sentiment than this meeting. So, as far as crude oil is concerned, on this chart we can see how volatile crude has been over the past few months. The decision of the US to impose sanctions on Iran was one of the main factors in turning around the price of crude. But OPEC's recent meeting last month has provided a boost to oil prices, much to the annoyance of President Trump, who will attempt to solicit Russian support to increase production and to break from its current deal with OPEC. News on any US-Russian agreement on crude oil, as I mentioned already, official or unofficial, will affect crude prices, although any formal agreement is highly unlikely. However, references to crude oil as a topic of discussion by either president or their teams may apply downward pressure to crude prices. If the subject is not raised at all, oil prices may be unaffected or potentially grow higher. Here we can see gold prices over the past 4 months or so. The interesting thing to note here is that despite the trade war issue, gold has not been much in demand as a safe haven. For the most part, this has been due to the strength of the dollar. However, the dollar has begun to fall, and some analysts are speculating that gold may become popular again if the trade war worsens, which seems likely at this point. A successful summit or accord on an arms deal may influence gold prices to retreat in the short term. But if there is open disagreement between the US and Russia, this could cause gold to continue its recent bounce. Okay, putting aside the Putin summit meeting, there are two other events before the summit which could move the markets, which you should be aware of. And they are both taking place this week, as you can see on the screen. The NATO summit is from July the 11th to July the 12th. The meeting isn't expected to be an easy one. In fact, I can confirm that from what I've seen today so far. President Trump and Chancellor Merkel appear to be in some disagreement. This meeting isn't expected to be easy, with disagreement on issues including the contribution of European countries to the NATO budget and whether the US feels NATO has a future at all. So the event has some market-moving potential. We might expect gold, the Japanese yen, and the Swiss franc to be affected to some degree, and potentially euro currency pairs and stocks. On July the 13th, just before the summit, Trump will visit the UK, and while no policy announcements are expected to affect the markets, it's worth keeping in mind. Headlines will likely be dominated by UK street protests against President Trump during his stay. In any case, the summit, the Putin-Trump summit, is a highly significant event, and it does have the potential to move the markets, so it will be worth bearing the geopolitical factors I've mentioned in mind. Well, in case you missed the promo code during the presentation, this is your opportunity to take advantage of our special offer, which will last for 24 hours. The promo code is FTD1X. And of course, it's up to you how to decide to use this offer. And we at ForTrade will be following the summit and how it affects the markets very closely. So please do get in touch with the senior account manager if you have any questions or want to take advantage of the trading opportunities that this event will present. Until next time, it's goodbye, and please join us at ForTrade again soon.